All right, let's talk about a story from ancient India that honestly sounds more like a myth than history. We're going to dive into the life of Jivaka Komarabhacca. This guy was a surgeon with skills that were just legendary, an advisor to kings, and he was the personal doctor to the Buddha himself. But here's the real kicker, the thing that makes his story just so wild. What if I told you that one of history's greatest surgeons was found as an orphan on a garbage heap? Seriously. And that's not some dramatic flair. That is exactly where his incredible journey begins. So to really get who this master healer was, you've got to start with the abandoned child. I mean, his story kicks off at the absolute lowest point you could imagine, and that really sets the stage for a life that was all about overcoming totally impossible odds. Okay, so picture this, the ancient city of Rajagaha. It's the capital of a powerful kingdom. A famous courtesan named Salavati has a baby boy. Now, in her line of work, having a child was a career ender, so she made this absolutely brutal choice. She had the newborn wrapped up and just left on a garbage dump to die. But destiny, or maybe just incredible luck, had something else in mind. The very next morning, Prince Abaya, who was the king's son, is passing by. He sees this flock of crows circling something and sends his men to check it out. And there they find the baby. The prince asks the crucial question, is he alive? And the answer comes back, yes. So right then and there, he names him Jivaka, which literally means the one who lives, or the survivor. The prince takes him in, raises him as his own son, and even gives him a second name, Komarabhacca, which means the one brought up by the prince. What a start, right? So, going from a garbage heap to a royal palace, that's a pretty wild start to a life. But Jivaka was smart. As he grew up, he knew he couldn't just coast on being the prince's adopted son. He had to make his own way, forge his own path. And that brings us to how he became this legendary master healer. When he was a teenager, he found out the truth about where he came from. And you can imagine, finding out you're not actually royalty, well, it gave him this powerful drive to prove himself. He decided he wanted to be a physician. And he didn't mess around. He went straight to the best school in the ancient world, the University of Takshashila. And for 7 straight years, he just buried himself in his studies, with his incredible teacher, a guy named Atreya Punarvasu. Okay, so after 7 years of hard work, it's time for the final exam. But his teacher, Atreya, was brilliant. He wasn't going to ask him to just recite a bunch of facts from a book. No, he gave him a test of true understanding, of deep perception. The challenge was simple, but so profound. He told Jivaka, go out into the forest and find me a plant that has no medicinal value at all. Jivaka wanders the forest for days, and he comes back to his teacher empty-handed. You'd think he failed, right? Nope. He passed in the most brilliant way imaginable. He explained that he couldn't find a single plant, not one, that didn't have some kind of medicinal property. His conclusion was this incredible insight. Everything on earth is nothing but medicine. As soon as he said that, his teacher knew his education was complete. Amazing. So, Jivaka heads back home, not just with 7 years of training, but with this incredible, deep wisdom. And almost immediately, the stories about his skills just start to spread like wildfire. We're talking about medical procedures that even today sound, well, pretty unbelievable for that time. I mean, listen to this. Ancient texts say he performed cranial surgery, literally opening up someone's skull to fix chronic headaches. He operated on a guy with twisted intestines, a condition that's usually a death sentence even today without modern surgery. He cured the king of a really painful fistula with just a single application of ointment. He was great with kids, a pediatrician, and maybe the most famous story of all, he actually operated on the Buddha, carefully removing a piece of rock from his foot after someone tried to assassinate him. And here's the really crucial part. This wasn't some kind of hocus pocus or magic. Jivaka had a system, a scientific method that sounds surprisingly modern. It had 3 steps. First was purva karma, which was basically the pre-op stage, all about careful observation and diagnosis. Then came pradhan karma, the main event, the surgery itself. And get this, he'd often do it in front of other people, almost like an early operating theater. And finally, pashtata karma, post-op care. He'd give the family super specific instructions to make sure the patient recovered properly. Well, with skills like that, it's no surprise that Jivaka eventually became the official royal physician. And it was his most important patient, King Bimbisara, who happened to be a huge follower of the Buddha, who made the introduction that would change Jivaka's life and seal his place in history. So Jivaka becomes the Buddha's personal doctor. He's treating him for all sorts of things, from everyday ailments to that serious foot injury. But he also became a really devoted follower. What's interesting is that the Buddha never told him to become a monk. He saw that Jivaka's real calling, his true purpose, was to be a healer. And as a layperson, he was free to treat everyone, from the king in his palace to the poorest person on the street.
And Jivaka's impact went way beyond just treating one patient at a time. He had this public health mindset. He looked at the whole community of monks and saw a huge problem. See, back then, the monks wore these things called pemsakula robes as a sign of renouncing the world. But these robes were made from rags they'd find on trash heaps, or even, get this, in cemeteries. Jivaka, as a doctor, immediately saw that this was super unhygienic and was making the monks sick all the time.
So he goes to the Buddha with this very practical advice. And this is huge. Based on what his doctor said, the Buddha actually changed one of the fundamental rules for the monks. He announced that from then on, it was okay for monks to accept clean, new robes from people who wanted to donate them. It sounds like a small thing, but this one practical change, driven by medical science, made a massive difference in the health of the entire community. And Jivaka's story, it doesn't just end there in ancient India. Not even close. His influence exploded across Asia. And believe it or not, it's been echoing down through 2,500 years, all the way to today. I mean, his fame just blew past the borders of India. In China and Tibet, he was basically deified, turned into a god of medicine. You can see in this old Tibetan painting, he's right there with the other great patriarchs of medicine. That's how much they respected him. His name literally became another word for healing. But what's really mind-blowing is how far ahead of his time he was. Long before we were talking about things like metabolic diseases, Jivaka saw the problem with the lifestyle of just sitting and not being careful about what you eat. He actually advised the Buddha to get the monks exercising to prevent the exact same kind of lifestyle diseases that we're all struggling with today. And this isn't just some abstract idea. It is shockingly relevant right now. Just look at the health crisis among monks in Thailand today. They have huge rates of high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and diabetes. A lot of it comes from the rich, sugary foods people donate. It just goes to show you, Jivaka's 2,500-year-old advice about diet and exercise, well, it's never been more important. So his legacy is just massive, both in spirit and in the real world. In Thailand, they call him the father of Thai medicine. In China, he's the medicine king. In the Buddhist tradition itself, he's considered an arahant, a saint who has reached nirvana. And you can even go and see the physical proof, the ruins of the Jivaka Rama, the monastery that he personally donated to the Buddha, are still there. All right, so after hearing about this absolutely incredible life, what can we really take away from it all? Let's try to boil it all down into 5 key lessons that are just as powerful now as they were 2,500 years ago. Okay, lesson number 1. Where you come from does not define where you're going. I mean, the baby on the trash heap became physician to the king. 2. Real wisdom is about seeing the potential in everything. Remember, for him, everything was medicine. 3. Compassion is the absolute core of healing. He didn't care if you were a king or a commoner. If you were sick, he helped you. 4. Sometimes common sense and foresight have to challenge old traditions for the greater good, just like he did with the monk's robes. And finally, number 5. Your greatest contribution might not come from a fancy title. It comes from using what you're good at to help everyone. He served best not as a monk, but as a doctor. You know, Jivaka's story is just this incredible reminder that one person, when they're armed with real knowledge and driven by true compassion, can make a difference that lasts for thousands of years. And that just leaves me with one final question for you. If a story this amazing could have been so easily lost forever on a garbage heap, whose stories of genius and compassion are we all overlooking today?